The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Reproduction or dissemination, other than for the purpose of education or information without the express written permission of the Phoenix Research Institute or Nova Society Media, is strictly prohibited.
Welcome back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bound. Today our panel will be answering listener emails, and we have a question from Emanuela, who lives in San Diego, California. And Emanuela asks, last week, Trump canceled flights for refugees entering the U.S. He has suspended refugee admissions. Finally, he has sent the U.S. military to the southern border. Is all this legal? I know you have warned about the consequences of these types of actions, but now that they are being put in place, what are your thoughts? And Emanuela, thank you for the question. I've been thinking about how Trump has no sense of honor, not even to honor what has already been put in place and the expectancy that the individuals had under the Biden administration, appointments that were already set up and flights that were already scheduled. Not to honor those, I think is absolutely heinous and unforgivable. People now are waiting; they have no idea what to do. And as we were saying in an earlier discussion, people who Afghans who were expected, people were waiting for them to come. Now apparently they're not coming. So yeah, it's the actions that Trump has taken, it's appallingly amoral and inhuman. And I'll let Mark and Scott talk because it's just so overwhelmingly depressing, really.
I mean, you got anything you wanted to add to any of that, Scott?
Well,
is this legal?
I guess that'll remain to be seen. I haven't read anywhere that people are fighting this at all. So, what part of it do you want to talk about? The cancellation of flights for people who have already been vetted,
all of it,
who helped us in the war, 21 years of war in Afghanistan, who can't go back to Afghanistan because they would be executed probably, or certainly persecuted, and who, we promised would find a home here in America. I think we need to do that. I think we need to honor our commitments, no matter whether you made the commitment or not. Certainly, the United States can't be about proving to the world that democracy is chaos. And that's pretty much what we're doing right now. We're proving that democracy is chaos. And I can't see that being a good thing for the future. And I can't see that as being a good thing for people around the world to look at the United States and see that everything is transactional and we have no core beliefs or values. And that is exactly who Trump is. People did vote him into the presidency knowing that. So this is what they voted for. This is what they get.
Well, people also see us, or Americans under Trump anyway, and having voted him in, as disloyal and untrustworthy, and as having betrayed trusts, as you said, Afghans who were promised, people who've already been vetted, who were expecting to come here, people who had legitimately scheduled appointments to see about refugee status. I mean, we're making ourselves a pariah, really.
Yeah, and even, I'm sorry, I didn't think of it, but the CBP program where you make an appointment to speak to a professional at the border at one of the, I think it's 8 border crossings, to be vetted to see whether you're eligible for asylum, was cut on the first day, which I believe was actually set up by Trump during his first administration. And it is now being trashed by the same guy who set it up and using the idea that this is how illegal people get here, which calls into question his understanding of the word illegal. By complying with our rules, they're legal, and they should be, treated with the respect that the law demands them to be treated with. So, look, everything is being done on the whim of one very, very childish human being, and no real good can come of this. But he proved himself to be really good at creating chaos the first time around, and he's creating chaos the second time around. No shock.
At what point do you think it might come to pass that the 25th Amendment might come under consideration?
I don't think we're anywhere close to that.
What do you think would have to happen for that?
I couldn't tell you.
The people who are closest to him would have to do that.
Yeah.
Not happening.
No, that's yeah. I mean, the only thing I can say about this is that, it goes back to the old saying, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. If there is anything that this might have a real impact on in the future, it is that other countries, if we get entangled into any kind of a conflict, people within that country are not going to be so willing to assist us. And even though things did not go in Afghanistan the way we would have liked them to, and there's a lot of different reasons for that, it had nothing to do with the people from Afghanistan, the Afghanis, that were there trying to help us. And so if you get another conflict in another area where you need these assets, and these are important assets, every single military person will tell you one of the most important assets you can have is somebody from the area. They know the land, they know the layout, they know the people, they know the language. They know the language that maybe you don't know. And again, it comes back to, hey, you screwed over these Afghanis who helped you. And no, they're going to think twice about assisting the United States in any conflict going forward. And to those people that support this idea of not letting them in, if you've got an MIA flag flying out in front of your house, take it down, because you've left these people behind. These people fought right alongside your military. They risked their lives and their family, their time, their treasure, their family in their own country to help your military. And it was invaluable help. And this is equally as bad. This is leaving prisoners of war, because that's what they are. Because the new Taliban, they're not looking at these people like, they're patriots or anything else. These are the people that helped those damn Americans. And you put them in harm's way. So if you support it, anybody out there supports this, and you've got one of those black MIA flags hanging outside your house, take it down. Because that should go for everyone. And that's about all I can put to that.
Well, what you just said, Mark, reminded me of how important knowing the language and knowing the culture. My late aunt was a cultural officer for the State Department, and she would have to learn the language, of course. But when we would be at my grandmother's and she would come to visit, she would have books on the country, the history, the culture, the people, and she was reading all of these in her spare time, because she would be the one to bring Americans who were visiting, whether it was the vice president's wife or this rock star person, anybody who was there, and it was her job to squire the person around and translate and be aware of all the customs, all the proprieties and improprieties, and where to go and what to say and how to behave and where not to go and what not to do. And It was when she was in South Korea, she had to take Marilyn Quayle around, Dan Quayle's wife, for example, and her counterpart had to take Mr. Quayle around. So you have to know what you're doing. Certainly as a career person, it didn't matter to my aunt who was in the White House. She had her own politics and she voted however she voted, but that was her private views. Her professional life was her job as an American, swearing an oath to the Constitution. I know her work at the embassies, it was invaluable. And at one point, she was the only American at the embassy in Mongolia. Everybody had to speak Russian, including her. So, I mean, what we do overseas really matters. And I don't know what this is going to look like under the present regime. But as you say, Mark, these are prisoners of war, the Afghanis. I hadn't thought about that before in that way. That's a very good point. But we're going to be shut out of information. It's not just going to be having withdrawn from, the WHO, the World Health Organization, where we're not going to get information on emerging illnesses and, warnings and things like that we're going to need in the future, potentially lab leaks and things like that. I think we're going to be shut out of a lot going forward.
Probably so.
So thank you, Emanuela, very much for the question, and I do hope that we answered it. And thank you again to all our listeners, and we will see you next time on the Nova Society.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or a comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Priscilla Hobbs, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of us here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening!